Hey, everybody. Welcome to season 3 of Spiritual Musings of a Popcorn Brain. I am Rachel, and I am the Popcorn Brain. And I wanted to take this season and do a shout out to those people who have been most influential in my life and played a significant role in shaping me into who I am. So this week, I would like to do a thank you to several pastors who have been hugely influential in my life, in my faith, in the past and up to present day. There's two whom I will not mention their name because while they meant a lot to me and taught me a lot at the time that they were my pastor, they fell away, and I hope that they've come back. I do try to remember to pray for them. It's just a reminder that we cannot put our faith in our pastors. They are men, and the enemy hits them hard, and sometimes they fall. But you can pray for them to come back and be reconciled with Jesus. So there will be a couple that I won't name specifically, but I still want to honor them for what they did for me. So I was going to start with when I was in college. The first pastor who kind of started this flame burning inside of me, this desire to really dig in and learn and know Scripture, because I had no idea the depth and all the things that I could learn. And he could take the most mundane passage and make it interesting. And so I want to say a big thank you to Tommy Nelson from Denton Bible Church. He was my pastor about 30 years ago. And he was a great biblical teacher. I believe he's still pastoring today. Another pastor I had when I was at A&M is one who I'm not going to mention his name, but he's the first one who got me thinking about an eternal perspective and having that eternal perspective in your life. Then in my young adulthood, there's Dan Pinto, who was in Fort Worth. I think there may still be in Fort Worth. And he sparked my love of Bible prophecy. And then I had another pastor in Richardson, whom I don't want to mention his name, but he had done a sermon on marriage and specifically reconciliation and the reasons why God desires reconciliation and not divorce. And that was right before my first husband committed adultery. And it was fresh in my mind when I was going through all that. And it's actually what helped me to be able to forgive and to try to reconcile with him. And God taught me so much in that process. And it wasn't for him. It was for me. Now, had he been willing to reconcile, then I believe God would have blessed that, and it would have been great for all involved. But even though he wasn't, I believe God redeemed it. And then more recently, I had Pete Briscoe as a pastor. And, I forgot to mention Mark Jones. He has since passed, but he was the music pastor when I was at Richardson, at that same church as the other pastor. And he's the one who came in the middle of the night when my daughters were in the NICU. And he didn't give sermons often because he was our music pastor, but there was one sermon that he gave about a couple whom he had admired their faith when he was a young adult. And he remembered praying that God would help him to have a faith like that. And he said you have to be careful what you pray for, because we don't necessarily realize what's going to have to happen to help us in our faith. Although, that being said, pray it. If you're sincere, you may go through a trial, and that's usually what has to happen to deepen your faith. But when you learn to trust God, to trust Jesus in that trial, you come out the other side so much deeper, so much stronger in your faith. And that sermon he gave was right before I had to deal with my biggest trial with my girls being in the NICU, and then with the betrayal of my spouse. And then currently my pastor is Chris Seidman, and he is a great pastor as well. I have several online pastors that mean a lot to me that I listen to. Currently, Jack Hibbs, Gary Hamrick, Alan Jackson. Ones who have been influential are Chuck Swindoll and Charles Stanley and Dr. Jeffress. And the one who reignited my passion, again, for scripture and learning in these past few years was Greg Laurie. So if you're not familiar with him, they actually recently did a movie that's based on how he became a believer, and it was called Jesus Revolution. So that's a great movie. It's not 100% correct, but it's still a great movie. And Greg Laurie, I thank you so much for your sense of humor. I love your dad jokes. And just the way that you take scripture and you're able to simplify it for those of us who need that. And thank you to all of you pastors for all that you have meant to me and the ways that you have helped me grow over the years. I'm very grateful to those of you who listen to my podcast, and I hope that you find it encouraging and that you will share it with someone who you believe will benefit from it, and that they will also be encouraged. So if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. If you are, thank you so much. And please share this with someone who you think will benefit. Thank you for listening and letting me share my popcorn brain. I appreciate you letting me share my musings.